Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is instigate. And this verb was suggested by the viewer Abigail Kim. Thank you so much for this suggestion. Now let's take a moment and review some of the definitions or ways that we can use this verb. The first way you may encounter the verb instigate being used can mean to bring about or initiate some type of action or event. You might think of causing something with this first definition. Related to this, the second definition is to incite someone to do something, especially something bad. So you'll notice the meaning to the second one is more negative, with that emphasis on something bad. So in instances where there is someone or something causing violence, causing really negative feelings or emotions, we're more likely to see this particular verb being used. For now, you should know that instigate is a regular verb. If you want to make the progressive form of this verb, we're going to drop the E on the end because our verb ends in that pattern of vowel consonant E. Then we'll add ing, and that forms instigating. The past tense and the participle form of this verb can be made by just adding the letter D, since this verb already ends in an E. Now, while it ends with the letter E, its ending sound is a T sound, instigate. Okay? This means when I add the ed ending to form the past tense or participle, I'm going to make an id sound. I'm going to add an extra syllable to this verb. So the past tense and participle form should sound like this: instigated, instigated. Now, you might be happy to know we don't have any additional phrasal verbs or meanings that we need to study, so we can move on and do a little verb tense practice with our verb of the day. Today, we're going to review the past progressive and the simple future. Let's start with the past progressive. We use this verb tense to talk about an action that was ongoing or continuing at a time in the past. You'll notice here, past progressive has two P's. That can help you remember you need two parts to make your verb. You will need to use the past tense form of be and the ing form of the verb. And be is one of those challenging verbs. We've got two forms in the past tense, so we have to pay attention to our subject. If our subject is I, he, she, or it, will use was and then that ing form of the verb to make our affirmative or positive sentences. But if our subject is you, we, or they, then we'll use were, W-E-R-E, and then that ing form of the verb. Let's take a look at an example sentences. Witnesses agreed she was instigating the fight. So you will encounter usages like this in newspaper articles talking about various arrests for maybe disorderly behavior or other things. But again, we're talking about someone who is bringing about maybe some unpleasant or bad actions, bad behavior. Now, if you want to make a negative past progressive sentence, again, you pay attention to your subject. Then you'll use either was not and then the ing form of the verb, or were not and then the ing form of the verb. You might also encounter the contraction form, so wasn't and weren't. Let's look at another example. We weren't instigating anything. We weren't in their territory. Saw a quote from actually it was a series of people who had noticed more coyotes coming onto their property and starting. Normally these animals would stay away from humans, but they were starting to attack in a particular community. And somebody who had had this experience was acknowledging, like, we weren't trying to attract the animal or antagonize, bother them, hurt them. These people had just been in the driveway of their home when the animal approached. Now let's look at making a yes or no question in the past progressive. To do this, we start with was or were. Whatever form matches our subject, that subject comes next. Then we'll use the ing form the verb. Here's another example. Were they instigating campus protests? So protest is not inherently negative. So this might be a little closer to that first definition where we're really thinking about someone bringing about or causing this event. Now let's move on and make some sentences in the simple future. Today we are going to focus on sentences with will. Will is most commonly used as people make predictions, so guess about something that will occur in the future. People use it to make offers and to make promises, and you can use it to describe your plans as well. The nice thing about making sentences with will is that our structure stays the same no matter what our subject is. So in the affirmative, we're going to use our subject, we're going to use will, and then the base verb. Here's another example. We will instigate an economic shutdown if the ruling party interferes with this election. I saw a statement very similar to this from a particular candidate running for office, and there were questions about how fair a particular election was going to be, and so they were promising boycotts of certain businesses until there was sort of a guarantee that it would be a fair election. Now let's look at making a negative simple future sentence. To do this, again, we start with our subject, we're going to use will not, and then the base verb. Now, something that can be a little odd or difficult to remember is that will not's form as a contraction is won't. So W-O-N apostrophe T, and you'll notice I'm making a long O sound when I say it. So an example might be, the president won't instigate any wars. So this sounds a bit like a promise, which is why we might see that worded in that particular way. Perhaps this is a spokesperson, a cabinet member, someone within the team kind of speaking on behalf there. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple future. To do this, we start with will, then we have our subject, and then the base verb. Here's my last example. Will their words instigate any more violence? So again, we're probably back to that second definition about causing a bad event. Now let's move on and talk about some words that are related to our verb instigate. The first word we'll discuss today is the noun instigation. This is describing the action or process of instigating some type of action or event. An example of this in a sentence might be, are governments abetting instigation of violence against minorities? This was a question a particular writer posed as they looked at various conflicts in a few different countries. And again, that idea of, are they sort of pushing along, causing more violence? Another noun to be aware of is instigator. That OR suffix is telling us this is a person who brings about or causes, initiates something. An example of how you might hear this used could be, who were the instigators of this fight? I feel like I heard a teacher or two say that as I was growing up, right? They wanted to know who started it. The last word we'll talk about is the adjective instigative. This means tending to provoke or incite. Again, this can help you cause a particular action. And again, it generally has kind of this negative meaning to it. The action being caused is maybe troublesome or rebellious in some way. An example of this in a sentence would be, he called himself an instigative reporter, and he's now been banned from City Hall for intimidating behavior. In this particular sentence, True story from I saw it mentioned actually in a number of different newspapers, but a particular person, normally the phrase is an investigative reporter, so somebody digging into details, trying to determine who did what, when, all of that things. But this person was sort of labeling themselves in that I am provoking or causing other people to act, maybe get upset, and many would say that's not really the role of a reporter, and clearly he made a number of people uncomfortable, and he is no longer able to go to a particular city hall because of those actions. Again, I want to say a special thanks to Abigail Kim for suggesting today's verb. I thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.